Hello and welcome everybody to Groundworks Live. My name is Tim Tracy. Work with Groundworks. We're the nation's leading foundation repair company. I've been in the building industry for probably a little bit over 20 years now, and we have it with us, plumbing expert Jerry Bradbury. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry Bradbury, operations manager at A1 Sewer and Drain, located in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I started in the plumbing industry in 1983. And continued on with it. So I've been doing plumbing for about 37 years. And I joined the A1 team in July of 2019, Tim.
Okay, well, welcome. We appreciate you coming over to our Groundworks Live segment. Today, we're going to cover a homeowner's guide to frozen pipes. We're going to talk about why pipes freeze, the freezing prevention tips, steps that you should take if the pipes were to freeze, and what to do if a frozen pipe bursts. When we talk about burst pipes, I can't help but to think about what's going on over in Texas and some of the parts that aren't used to this type of cold weather. New York Times said it was the effects of basically like if a hurricane hit. So us in Virginia, we'd feel those kind of pressures. So, but start us off, I'm going to pass it over to Jerry, our plumbing expert, and we're going to cover why do pipes freeze? What's some of these causes that you can tell us about?
Well, Tim, there's three main factors why pipes freeze: weather, time, and movement, and construction of the property. Weather being the most obvious, of course. Weather's got to be below 32 degrees before the pipes will freeze. Time and movement being another one. As stationary water will freeze quicker than moving water. It's kind of like the pond effect. A pond will freeze over before a rolling stream will freeze over.
Sure.
So your outside faucets, like your hose bib, that don't get used in the wintertime, they're very acceptable to freezing. Your outside pipes that are on your wall, like your kitchen is normally on the outside wall. Your kitchen sink, a lot of them have the window there, and therefore those pipes there that are on the outside wall, those are subject to freezing if the movement isn't with the pipe. Then you got the construction of the property as well. Typically, your pipes are ran on the outside wall. They run through the garage, they run through the basement or crawl spaces that are unheated areas. And in the southern states, we don't have the insulating codes that we do in the northern states. So your house, generally, a lot of the insulating factors don't come into play in the southern states.
Sure. So if you think about like North Dakota is going to have a lot different insulation in a home than somewhere like Georgia, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct.
So, if we're looking at some of the frozen pipes where that can happen in the U.S., we did some research with some data we pulled from Google. And what we found was where are the cities that are most likely to have frozen pipes? And, one of those things is that you find out is it doesn't matter if you're in Minnesota down to Texas or from California out to the state of Virginia, that anywhere in between is going to have these kinds of problems, right? So since we know they can happen virtually anywhere in the United States, with the exception of like Hawaii, right?
Right.
But can you tell us what kind of tips that we can go or what a homeowner can do at home to prevent their pipes from freezing?
Certainly. One of the biggest things that you can do is improve your insulation. And when you make the decision to do your insulation on your pipes, we strongly suggest that you do both hot and cold piping. The insulation will keep your pipes from freezing. Not only that, it gives your energy boost to your house, efficiency. With your traditional water heater, you're already paying to heat up the water and put it through your pipe. So with the insulation, your standby water in those pipes are going to stay hot longer, and they'll cool down a lot slower than what they would without the insulation. So by adding the proper insulation, you can also save your money on utility bills as well.
Okay, with that benefit, is that something that can help in the winter time or summertime as well as the winter? Or?
Absolutely. Not only does the insulation help you with you're hot in the winter months, but also in the cooler months or warmer months too. Your pipes Generally, they expand and contract depending on how they are strapped up and how they are joined together. They can cause wear and tear on your pipes. So by having them both insulated, hot and cold pipes, and having them for the winter time to save from freezing, and in the summertime it keeps from the extreme humid temperatures and the heat, keeps them from contracting and stuff like that, to where you know you won't have the wear and tear on it quite as much.
Okay.
Yeah. So now the other thing would be having PEX pipes installed. PEX pipe will lessen the chance of having a burst or anything like that. And you know, the chemical structure of PEX is a lot different than most of our pipes. I mean, the chemical structure has better flexibility. It holds up better for pressure capabilities, especially in extremely cold weather. And most of our repairs that we do, that we use PEX for this very same reason. However, it's important to know that your PEX pipes, they're not burst, proof, but they're burst resistant.
Sure.
So oftentimes too, we go in and we do a whole house of nothing but PEX, to where we'll go in and tear out your old pipe, put in a new PEX pipe, and it helps with, you know, saving you on anything having to do with bursting pipes, because now you got PEX in there and you got rid of some of the older pipe that was in there.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we have some people tuning in, some of these homeowners that are wondering, what type of pipe do I have? What are some of the visual clues to, do they have PEX? Do they have copper? What type of pipes they're looking at?
Right. So your PEX pipe is a white plastic pipe, and it's going to have writing on it. It's going to have the letters PEX. And that's how you know you got PEX pipe. With your copper pipe, you know, typically it's copper color, of course. Sometimes it gets green depending on the weather or whatnot. And it's a rigid steel pipe. It's a metal pipe. And then you got your CPVC pipe, which is a hard, rigid plastic pipe that takes fittings to glue together. These pipes here are at more risk of bursting, Tim. And especially in extreme cold weather, it holds more of a chance of busting. Now, your Quest piping, a lot of houses that were built from the late 70s to the mid 90s, those houses were built in Quest pipe, and Quest pipe is extremely versatile to bursting pipes. You know, it's been in the news. There's been stuff out about it. So we highly suggest that if you have Quest pipe, or if you don't know what you have, call a licensed plumber out there. Get them out there to diagnose your system and what type of pipes you have in there. And if you do have Quest pipe, you know, Quest pipe can burst without a warning or anything, and especially, like I said, in freezing temperatures. So that's the big thing with the Quest pipe, you know, changing that there, getting that out of there, because when Quest pipes burst, it can cause problems to your basement, to your crawl space, to the foundation of your house. Sure. But it's very important to protect your exposed pipes on your outmost walls. You know, your bathrooms sometimes are border on the outside walls, along with your kitchen sinks, and your hose bibs. Those are the big ones that are on there. And with the historical weather that we've had all over the place, especially in Texas, many southern homeowners, they're just not prepared for, you know, extreme cold weather like this. And we're seeing a bigger threat for increasing cold weather hitting the southern states now.
Sure.
So as a precautionary measure, you know, we suggest that you do get a licensed plumber out there, and let's find out what type of pipes you have and take care of them.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, to add on to what you're talking about with threats, right? With this freezing weather, we look at this concept in building science called the stack effect. And what it says, basically, warm air rises. Most people know that, right? We learned that early on in school. What they don't realize is that cold air is pulled in at the bottom of the house around ground level. So the crawl spaces, the basements are exposed to this colder air. That's that replacement air, as that air continues to rise through the house. So we want to make sure that we start at the bottom. Protecting those pipes, like you said, is going to help with those cold drafts in the winter. We're going to reduce humidity in the summertime in the crawl spaces and the basements, improving that home energy efficiency, which is really important to most homeowners, I think, these days, and ultimately protecting against flooding when we have these freezing temperatures. So as you are addressing the drafts and these cold airs that are coming in, start at the bottom of the house, work your way up. So now that we know some things about how to prevent freezing in the pipes, do you have any tips or tricks that the homeowners can start implementing today, something they could get started right away?
Absolutely. Tim, if the temperatures get below 32, one thing that comes down to the pond effect once again in the stream. Open up that faucet, have it dripping, have that movement in the water and in your pipes. That'll keep it from freezing. Another thing is venting underneath your cabinets. And very simply, opening up your cabinet doors and having the heat from the house be able to get into the cabinet doors on your outside walls where you have plumbing, and it'll keep it at room temperature. Now, the other big thing too is if you travel and you're traveling in the wintertime, we highly suggest that you set your temperature to about 55 degrees. Leave it there and leave those cabinet doors open when you go out, when you leave. Leave those open and have a friend, neighbor, or family member periodically check on your house. And especially if it gets colder than 32 degrees, have your house checked out on and they can stop by and make sure nothing's going on with your house as far as your plumbing goes.
Okay. Well, those are some great kind of free tips to get started with. So we've covered why pipes freeze. We've covered some tips to prevent pipes from freezing. Jerry, tell me what happens if a homeowner suspects they might have some frozen pipes. What are the kind of first steps they need to take if they find themselves in that type of situation?
Well, the first step that you want to do is make sure that your pipes are actually frozen. Something else ain't going on. And typically, you're going to find out that there's no water coming out of the faucet or it's a very small stream. You can visibly look at your pipes coming through your wall and your hose bib outside, see if there's frost on it. And look for your bulging of your pipes where they come through the wall. Sometimes those pipes will blow up a little bit. They won't necessarily bust, but they'll blow up and they're getting ready to bust if that happens, of course. And you may see some visual cracks in the pipe itself. And in most cases, you're not going to know that your pipes are getting ready to freeze. You're going to know when they are. You're going to find out after they are frozen. So the big thing after determining that you do have frozen pipes is shut off your water. Shut off your water. That can help from where you have a frozen pipe and that frozen pipe starts to thaw. And once it starts thawing out, that water comes out. You don't want to flood out your whole house. So first thing you want to do once you have a frozen pipe, because chances are you have damage to it, turn off that there out at the street, preferably, and call a licensed plumber out there right away. Get a licensed plumber out there and have them diagnose the system. Generally, that we can tell you, if it's safe to turn on the water after it thaws out and whatnot.
Since one of the first steps is to make sure you turn off that main water, I'm sure there's a lot of homeowners that have no idea where that is, how to do it. Can you help those guys out there? How do we shut off the main water supply? Yeah,
so your main water supply, generally you're going to have a shut off in your house for your main water, and you're going to have one or two for your hose bibs. We strongly suggest that you cut it off at the street. You have a meter that comes up to your house that's down by the street. It's in a metal box, and that meter right behind it's going to be a shut off valve. We strongly suggest that you shut it off there. Is the best place to shut it off. Don't touch your valves in your house unless you have to and you're comfortable with it. Other than that, shut it off at the street and call a licensed plumber, get him out there.
Okay. Well, it's very insightful. It helps out the homeowners that might have not had to face this situation yet. So there might be multiple valves. Keep that hose or the faucet inside on. These are great little tips. So you determine that the pipe's frozen. You shut off the water line. Now what? What's the next step?
Well, you definitely don't want to go and try to thaw out your lines. You know, a lot of people may try to do that, but when you do that, you know, you want to avoid using heat lamps or any type of flames or uh, space heaters or anything like that, because of course now you're talking about a fire risk, especially if it's unattended. Uh, and since the pipe is frozen, you know that there's already damage done. I mean, it's already frozen. There's already damage done. You know, there may be small pieces of pipe that need to be replaced after it's thawed out. And that's where we come in. You call a licensed plumber, get them out there, and let's you know, diagnose the situation and find out the effects that have taken place because of the frozen pipe.
Okay, that's very interesting. You know, I consider myself kind of a handy guy, so I want to take care of things myself, and maybe that DIY approach isn't the best thing here, because that's going to cause, you know, thousands of dollars in damages, right? When you have thousands of gallons of water coming in your crawl space, your basement, and you know, eventually could lead to even foundation repair problems.
Yeah, and speaking about basements and foundations and crawl spaces, another area where the homeowners need to be aware of is their sump pump, especially the discharge line. Tim, you could probably answer questions more in depth and tell us a little bit more in depth about the sump pump, the discharge line, and about them freezing.
Sure. Before we jump into the sump pumps, let's remind everybody out there, feel free to submit questions to the chat. Jerry and I'll address those at the end. And then that way, what you guys are thinking at home, we can get answered here. So with the frozen discharge lines, a lot of contractors or DIY, if they're putting in the sump pumps themselves, so they're trying that kind of repair, they overlook this solid pipe coming out of the home and then down into the ground, and easily underground that can freeze, or right at ground level. So what we do as a company is install freeze guards. This allows, even if that pipe were to freeze underground, then the water can continue to be pumped out, and you're not stuck with a sump pump that burns out because it's trying to pump water and it can't get it out of there. And what happens when the sump pump fails? Then the water starts backing up into the crawl space and the basement, which can lead to thousands of dollars in damages if that were to happen. Even, I think FEMA estimates that even 1 inch of flooding in a basement can cause $25,000 in damage. So nobody wants to see that. So Jerry, you shared some insights on what to do if you had a frozen pipe. The last thing I want to do is touch on what actions do you recommend for somebody that, worst case scenario, a pipe burst, because not all frozen pipes will burst, but when they burst, what's the first thing they should do?
First thing you need to do when your pipe bursts is, you know, turn off the water. And there's numerous telltale signs that you know, you have a bursted pipe going on, and it's a lot cheaper to catch that leak when it's a leak before it becomes a bursted pipe and it's flooded out in the area. You can, you know, you may experience sudden drop in your pressure, little or no water coming out. There may be standing water out in the yard. It could be standing water inside your house. You may notice it around your baseboard, things like that in the corner. You know, your water may be discolored when it's coming out. So these are all signs of a burst pipe. And you may end up, if it's going on long enough, you'll notice it in your utility bill as well. And those are some of the more signs that are, you know, hey, something's going on here. There's a chance I have a busted pipe. The most overlooked one, though, Tim, is the stain on the wall. You know, the stain on the wall, the stain on the ceiling. You know, you see a little discoloration on the wall or on the ceiling. Chances are something's going on the other side of that sheetrock or that wall. So, you know, this reminds me, a few years ago, a couple had a house. They noticed a stain on the ceiling. They went to work. The stain was probably about the size of a quarter to a $50. Came home, stain's still about quarter, $50. Didn't really think a whole lot about it, Tim. And so they went back and worked, you know, they left it alone. And when they went back, they came back home from work one day, pulled up, you know, 3 days after noticing the stain about, you know, they pulled up, water's coming out from underneath their garage door, coming out of their front door as well. and they go in, they open up the door, that section, that little leak that was up there that caused that little stain, a little leak, that pipe had burst. And when it burst, it just dumped gallons and gallons of water into the ceiling cavity, causing the sheetrock to come down on the floor. And these people, it was devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, it was devastating. The loss, the damage to the property, and more than that, the damage to, you know, their property, their personal belongings as well.
Yeah, I can't imagine coming home, and it's one thing to see water coming out of underneath the garage door, but seeing your drywall down on your couch,
Yeah.
nobody wants to experience that.
Yeah.
So not all frozen pipes burst, but if you're having this kind of water damage, or if you're suspecting water damage, especially in a basement, some of the things to look for there would be musty smells, damp walls, those kind of stains that you would see that might start prior to major damage happening if that leak is still kind of small. With a crawl space, it's not quite as easy to see these leaks or these stains because they're happening actually underneath the ground. So you can see in the photo that minor pipe leak in a crawl space can lead to damage that's kind of already going, and it's starting to progress in that area. Installing a crawl space encapsulation system will help prevent this kind of problem with air, because as that continues and there's more and more water gathering around the foundation, you can actually lead to some structural problems. And you know,
yeah, and you know, I certainly witnessed my share of busted pipes in the crawl space and in basements, and the damage that comes from it, from the moisture itself. The moisture causes a lot of damage, and you know, the encapsulation, like you said, that can help also with, you know, your pipes from freezing, along with insulating them, is another way that, you know, you can definitely take necessary steps.
yeah, you're tightening up that building envelope by putting that insulation down in the crawl space in the right place along the walls, rather than up in the floor joist.
That's correct.
It's not protecting those pipes in that place.
No.
Well, you know, that's main things I wanted to cover today for this homeowner's guide. We want to go over to the Facebook Live. Just to recap before we answer any of these questions, we talked about why pipes freeze, pipe prevention, freezing prevention tips, steps that you should take if you were to find yourself with some frozen pipes. And then again, worst case scenario, those burst, what are the steps that you need to take? So appreciate Jerry for joining. Let's click over and see what we have here. So first question we have, should I insulate all of my pipes or only the ones that are on the outside walls?
Well, Tim, you know, you want to insulate all your pipes that you can get to without, you know, tearing up your house or taking down sheetrock or whatnot. Now, if you have a Quest pipe in there, you don't want to insulate all your piping, because what we're going to want to do is remove that and get the PEX pipe in there and get the Quest pipe out. So you want to insulate all the pipes that you can get to. Okay. Preferably all your pipes you want insulated, but at least the ones that you can get to is a good place to start.
Sure. Not only protection, but like you said, it boosts energy efficiency. Yeah, so they're going to save.
And by calling a licensed plumber to get out there, we can diagnose and see what needs to be done and consult with you and let you know where to take it from there.
Fantastic. So there's another one. If I close the vents in my crawl space, will that help keep the area warm enough to prevent freezing pipes below my home?
Well, that's not going to really necessarily prevent it. It will keep the draft from coming through and some of the airflow, which, as we know, airflow can also cause cooling down. But, you know, probably the best thing, it will help, but encapsulating your crawl space would be the thing to do. That would help more than anything.
Yeah, because most homeowners are told to close their vents during the wintertime and open them during the summer to get that airflow. But they don't realize that in the wintertime, you just have this thin piece of metal that's separating the outside from the inside. And it's just not really the best way to insulate, and not maybe the best building practice, right? Long-term.
That's correct.
For structural of the home. Here's an interesting one, Jerry. Can my sewer line freeze?
Well, you know, your sewer line typically will not freeze because your sewer line doesn't actually hold water. You know, so no water's holding in there, it won't necessarily freeze. However, your traps that are underneath your sinks, that little U shape, that holds water. That's what keeps sewer gases from getting into your house. So if you have those sinks on the outside wall, those can freeze. But if you leave your cabinet door open, chances are they won't freeze if it's warm in the house, and your sewer will still work even when your water pipes are frozen, and they won't.
Okay, so still looking at those specific places that can happen in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see. Here's another one. Last winter, I had a pipe burst in my crawl space while I was away on vacation, kind of like what you're talking about earlier. I now notice that the floors above the area in the kitchen are sloping and even bouncy. Could the burst pipe have caused this, and how could I fix it?
Absolutely. You know, your burst pipe, when it bursts, it's sending water all over the place. Your subfloor is getting wet. Your joists are getting wet. And, you know, once they get wet, and depending on how long it was leaking, you know, water does soften wood and destroys it, and it can make it bounce. Your best bet on that case is get a foundation company out there, get them to diagnose what you have to do, and get that fixed. Make sure you fix the leak first before you do anything. And that's what you call a licensed plumber out there. We can diagnose the situation, get that leak fixed, get it back up and running, let you know somewhat the damage, and then you'd want to contact, you know, a foundation company and have them come out.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing, take care of the water. But if you're noticing it, like this homeowner, where it's months after or quite a bit of time after, calling somebody, you know, from the Groundworks companies to come out, certified field inspector, they're going to tell you exactly what the problem is, what the exact fix would be, and identify, is it the wood? Is it the foundation? Is it the footer? What's causing the main part of the problem?
Yep.
So just make sure we don't have any other questions. Looks like that's about it for today. So appreciate everybody that tuned in. Again, thanks Jerry for coming over and giving us some of your helpful tips and your advice on the plumbing avenues. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to groundworks.com or a1plumbers.com. You can reach Jerry and his crew. And appreciate you guys tuning in. Look for future Groundworks live sessions.
Thank you.